Hello everyone and welcome back to Swamp Dog Games. I'm your host DK. Today I'm going to be trying a new video format on this channel, RPG Storytime. I just got back from SimCon 45, that's what's it on the upper corner, from University of Rochester this past weekend, and I wanted to talk particularly about two RPG events that I did there. This video's focus will be on the 1E Beyond the Crystal Cave adventure that was run by another GM that I got to participate as a player, and then later a separate video will be a follow-up with another RPG story time with a one-shot that another GM ran at the event. Part of the reason why I wanted to do this video is a knowledge/memory dump, because I had a really great time playing it with the guys there, and really wanted to make sure that I could capture it while it was still fresh in my mind for posterity. Now, one warning, there is a very hardcore gamer moment that comes up in the story, so if you are of the type that views themselves as permanently offended or easily offended, I would say TTFN or GTFO. One of the two, take your pick. And this will be for the rest of us that like hearing a fun story about gamers just sitting around a table having fun and enjoying a one-shot together at a convention. So, without further ado, I will start with the preamble of this adventure module. I will then go into, as it was told by the Game Master, I will then go into the play, and then my thoughts afterwards will be the three major sections of this video. In full disclosure, this video does have massive spoilers, though it was not a complete playthrough of the adventure, as the guy had to whittle down a ton of content for time because we only had a 4-hour block to play this in. This isn't the full adventure. It does give you massive spoilers of the Beyond the Crystal Cave module, also known as UK1, that will help you, that will ruin your immersion if you are a player and haven't gone in there yet. So either have your Game Master watch this video first, and then you can come back after playing it, or be warned that massive spoilers are ahead. This is not, though, a comprehensive view on the module. As I said, content was cut, so there is still plenty to be surprised about. If you are the Game Master and wanting to run this adventure, I will, in a separate video much further down the line, be doing a retrospective once I get to play this adventure as the Game Master for my group, going over some of the material that I did not get to experience today. But this will give you a very good Cliff Notes synopsis of how the adventure runs, what the major plot points are in the adventure, as well as get the general feel if this is an adventure for you. So, if you accept those conditions and you hit the like and subscribe button down below, got to get that engagement, with the video started, we will get into the adventure. So now, the preamble! So this is the cover off of Wikipedia for Beyond the Crystal Cave Module UK1. This originally came out for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. The backstory of the adventure, because some of it does play into the story as far as our character interactions went. This is set in the world of Greyhawk. Now, despite me having recently become a big fan of OSR content, really going backwards to that old Gygaxian-style gameplay design, I've been backing the project for Castles and Crusades, the republishing of those old, out-of-date Gygax World Builder books, the the Hermit in the Cave, or the Hermit module that they're releasing soon. Really big fan of Gygax. I don't actually have that much experience with his preeminent world, which beyond just the basics of Greyhawk was his primary world setting that he created for his group. So I know just that much, that it is very European focused. It was his personal setting. There's a lot of old school fans of it. Wizards, just like every other setting of TSR, has essentially left it to die. But on the same front, you kind of don't want them touching your modules anyway, so it's got that weird love-hate relationship with, I think, the fans and WotC, because they're upset that they don't get any more material for their favorite setting, but on the other hand, kind of glad that WotC isn't screwing it up. I am going to butcher and misremember a lot of the names, so I'm going to be using the real-world European equivalents for a lot of stuff. So if you are a grognard and you know the proper names for this, yes, I kind of remember it, but I remember these modules better by association with something, and I'm remembering to try to remember more beyond just the name, like what they're actually trying to achieve from a character development or story plot thread manner. So that association, I'm going to remember the European name better than I will the module name. So this adventure takes place in a Venetian style coastal city in the lower left hand corner of the map, called Cybrant. It's Cybrant. I got the character sheet up here. I guess I should. Yep, Cybrant. Or yeah, Sybarate. Yeah, which is in the gray Cybar. Sorry, that's the language. So the city is Cybar. It's very Venice based. So think more Enlightenment, Venice in Italy type of political structure. It's run by many merchant families that all come together for the unity of the city. It is officially run by a duke, but there's a lot of political chicanery on the day-to-day. They are, as a city-state, very pro-city-state defense. So when the city-state becomes threatened, they all put aside their differences, come together for the common defense, and then when the external threat is done, then they go back to all their internal political chicanery. 2 years ago, effectively the two major houses of the city, they both had a son and daughter, or each had a son and daughter that fell in love, your classic Romeo and Juliet style relationship. They got found out. They had to hightail it out of town because each of their family members were like, you dishonored us, and GTFO type deal. When they got ran out of town, they know the male was injured, but the Romeo was injured, but beyond that, they haven't seen either of them for over 2 years. The political situation has kind of got into a boiling point again. Hatfield McCoy, Romeo and Juliet style, that bashing of heads, to the point where it looks like civil war is about to break out within the city of Cybar. The Duke of the is like really wanting to get this solved because, hey, blood in the street, while a good time to buy land, doesn't really bode well for your political career nor for your finances when you're a merchant state. So he's gone down and recruited the I would say the B tier nobility, noble families to each send a representative to come together to come out on this adventure, partially because there's the Duke, then as I understand it, it's the second tier royal families. The two of them are the ones fighting at each other, about to drag into civil war, so he can't really ask them to put aside the differences, so he has to go below them to get the next group. So these guys would be like your heads of merchant guild families, heads of like trade empires. They aren't politically strong enough that they could like control sections of the city, but are powerful enough to control like elements, a single element of the society, but don't control cross sections of a society the way the upper tier noble families are warring it out. As such, they draw the noble families in who have children that, because of their noble class, got to go to school, of course, participated in adventuring, did go out on adventures across the world, seen the world, and do have a little bit of a background of actually practical experience in traveling and adventuring that the Duke kind of needs to figure out, okay, where are these people? Where are the two kids, the lovers? Where'd they go? Let's find them quickly and get this mess sorted out. The reason why he's going to the adventurers is because there is this, if you think like the Oracle of Delphi, though I might be thinking of the equivalent in Hercules, the Legendary Journeys, the slightly crazy woman that works by the washers. So she has been kind of, it's not fully outcast of society, but she's not there mentally enough to be able to like take care of herself. And of course, there's no health care in ye olden fantasy Middle Ages. So she kind of does odd jobs with the washing women by the water canal to help do some laundry, but is otherwise kind of crazy and survives mainly off the pity and goodwill of others around her. But she's known to have clairvoyant visions that more often than not actually become true. Recently, she happened to have a mental episode where she proclaimed that she saw Romeo and Juliet in the secret garden, and the Duke's like, okay, nabbing her, calling adventurers, I need to send them out to investigate the secret garden. Now, jumping ship to another history lesson, many thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years ago, there was a mage who had his lover become his wife. They were happy together, magically inclined, like super magic user, mage class that can engage in world-altering magics. He created a garden for his wife that's a couple miles out of town, maybe half to 3/4 of a day trek out of town from Cybar. And it's this couple mile oval-shaped garden that's in the middle of nowhere. It comes with a force field that if you're far enough away, you can see into it, minus the issues of distance. But as you get closer to it, it has a force field around it that makes it opaque, so you can't actually look into the garden anymore as you get closer. So people can kind of gaze at this garden from afar. Very pretty, very nice. But it looks like time has stopped within the garden. No one knows how to get into this place, though they've tried for thousands of years, sometimes crazier than others' attempts. And it's just there that people are aware of, but because nobody can do anything about the garden, it's essentially is a tourist trap for newcomers through town that they may show them the place once in a while, but it's not really a big spot for activity. But the crazy seer has seen Romeo and Juliet within the garden, so The Duke is desperate. No one's been able to get in there. Hail Mary pass. Let's get these adventurers. He's going to spare no expense, put them together, and send them out on a party with the mission: recover Romeo and Juliet. So that is a more Cliff Note background of the module than what even I got at this adventure, which was even more Cliff Note than what the module is actually written for. They went into the whole political structure, more into the Venetian style government in Cybar. All of the player characters for this one shot are all of noble birth. What would be like right above Baron, maybe, in terms of political power within the city government. But we have the most of us are also noble birth, or we're all of noble birth within it. Some, like the character I was playing, Portia Villanova, and her brother are the heir apparents for the family title, to actually rule the family going forward. If you think family, my first thought is like going back to like mob bosses and how they ran. It's like, I'm now seeing how they formed their organizational structure. This is classical Italian family political dynamics. But we're from one family that follows the serpent. So we are the peer of the serpent Contrada, or the serpent clan. Then there was a unicorn clan, a scorpion clan, which you can't trust, of course. Just remember the poor dog that got stabbed going across the river. The ox unicorn, it wasn't there, but I want to say octopus, even though there was no octopus clan there. But we all got together. That formed the basis of our character interactions and backstory for how we were going to be engaging with this. We, of course, had very little to go off of, just the visions of a woman that is 99% of the time just crazy and incoherent, but the one time that she actually gets her clairvoyant visions has been very prescient with them. So we gather all of our stuff, begin the journey off towards the secret garden with the goal of retrieving Romeo and Juliet. Now that has been accomplished, though we had kind of done a little bit of in-game role-playing, this is where I would say the adventure, though, truly starts. So, as an adventuring party, we then, having left Cybar, arrive at the secret garden on the cliff-ish, I guess, hill, or like it overlooking this valley that the secret garden is located in. As we arrive, we can see the sort of oval-shaped garden. When you try looking into it with ocular devices or with magic, it instantly like seizes up so you can't see into it anymore. So it's designed that, yeah, you can look at it nicely from afar, but no, you can't go into the secret garden. Also forgot to add that the secret garden, though that was where the ancient wizard and his wife lived, when his wife died, he entombed her and then himself in this garden. So there is, in the local legend, a mausoleum somewhere in here where the wizard and his wife lie. And he sealed it off that no one was ever allowed into it. So this whole garden is also kind of a graveyard as well. So no one's been able to get in here. It's obviously high magic, and the guy was powerful enough to create this space. And when you get there at a distance, you can kind of see evidence that there are creatures flying, and birds and whatnot. But it seems that time has frozen itself within the confines of the oval. There is some artwork, though, in history that has shown that Some things have changed within the confines of the secret garden over the thousands of years, like artist renditions of the garden shows a castle at one end of it, at the eastern end of the garden. Now it just looks like a pile of rubble instead. So I should say its time is not frozen within it, but has been drastically altered so that things occur very slowly within the confines of this garden space. As we arrive, though, of course, we have no clue what the hell we're doing, no clue anything that could be of use to get in here. We just know, hey, we need to get into this place somehow. You know what? Camp, get to it in the first light in the morning when we have the benefit of the full day ahead of us, and we can then start exploring. So we make camp at the edge, spend the night there, first thing in the morning, pick it all up, and we're ready to go down within the confines of the sort of like bowl valley. That I guess if you want to say it, it'd look kind of like a meteorite hit here, and the center would be the egg, though this hasn't been always the case. There's natural forming hills, so it kind of slopes inward. It's a very lush garden. Our first thought was, hey, check to see if there's any indication of like a way in. We could tell that part of the wall shows that water must have been coming into this walled off space at one point, because there's a section of water that brushes right up against the edge, and you can kind of see a dried out riverbed that goes off into the wrong direction. That would have come in here, but has obviously been dried out over the years, and you can see sediments built up a little bit, so that the garden itself is actually resting slightly lower than the surrounding confines of this valley. So we're discussing the best way to try to get in. We're coming up with, let's run a few experiments. Of course, can you chisel it? Can you, like, test, like, is there an upper open area that people can drop in from? Of course, all of this is failing miserably. We are then within the confines of this valley, and we happen to notice, hey, off in the distance, there's a farmer that is trying to plow this obviously desolate space. Now, anyone who has even the basic understanding of how farming goes, from just the description that we were given of this valley, it is not hospitable enough to actually do any sort of legitimate farming in here without significant terraforming to get water sources in here. The ground is not moist enough. It's very loose, dried out topsoil. There's no place for roots to get in. It would be a horrible, horrible idea to actually try to farm in this area. But we got nothing better to do. It looks obviously suspicious. Why don't we go down and investigate? My first thought was, okay, is this some ancient ghost of the olden days? My gardening in here, which was me overcomplicating the adventure a little bit. So we depart off of there. Not only is on our way over there, then we're given the brief by the game master and our religious member. I do the in air quotes because he is the cleric. Is part of the party, but you know how it's one of those things of the player explains to the party the obvious religious significance of the valley we're in, when it's actually the game master explaining it to everyone through the character, as he goes on about this valley is also viewed as somewhat sacred, not like a lightning bolt will come and electrocute your ass for disturbing the area, but it's very bad form to be doing things in this valley, considering that it's also viewed as an active gravesite. So this guy is both really stupid for being in this area to begin with, trying to turn this into farmland, and B, is also breaking a lot of natural local taboos as well, doing this within the garden space. So we get up to him. He gets this shit scared out of him effectively because, hey, the obviously significant lords and ladies of Cybar are approaching him. He's now in a space that is sacred and not officially illegal, but is going to be held to pay for doing it, for trying to farm in here, as well as kind of stupid for being here. Of course, the poor guy is dragging his son and his oxen into this to try to mine it. So the father is like, he's been caught with his hand in the cookie jar. So he's trying to be like, oh, yeah, lords and ladies, yes, I apologize. And then making up excuses for how this is intelligent, even though it's obviously not. And so we then interact with the farmer and his son. One of them takes the farmer away. If you know anything about interrogation, you separate the suspects. With the father away, that was kind of fruitless, that interrogation. The father's just an idiot. And then taking the son over as helping him take care of the poor oxen that's being dragged into the middle of this venture. Talking with the son, he is like, oh yeah, my father I think is kind of an idiot. We did find a couple things though in this field of interest. He hands us a scroll case, which by the way, game masters who use physical props, thank you so much. I do it myself as much as I can. I ended up getting, apparently it's sold on Amazon. If you do scroll dice tray, you should be able to find it. So it's got the little cylindrical space that you put your dice in, and then you roll it up so it's in a scroll looking thing. The game master didn't have dice in here, but it stuck some scrolls in here, and I assumed it was a clue as I open up the thing, and it's all ancient Egyptian. Jumping slightly ahead, while we're doing other things within this valley, I spend an ungodly amount of time looking at these ancient Egyptian scrolls, looking at it, as the game master confirms none of us know or recognize this language. I'm like, okay, there's some hidden algorithm in here that shows a path into the area, and I've been mucking around with the thing, and the GM asked me what I'm doing, and I explained, yeah, is there a secret code? It's like, nah, I just print off the Book of the Dead from ancient Egypt. There is no secret code that comes with this module. And I'm like, man, I really overthought this and went way too in depth. I should have just ignored this red herring, but so I did that a while in this. So great physical prop. It got me to engage with something that was absolutely useless for the adventure, but it was fun. And a couple other trinkets that some other guys get. I guess some magical items, as they did emanate magical aura, but we never figured out what they were. Of course, we all tried throwing them at the barrier to see if any of them would actually work. And then as well, the druid also had a magical item from the start of the adventure too. This big resin ball the game master gave him that the local druid leader knew what was in here, but the current druid that's with our party doesn't. And so we also threw the magical items at that ball too to see if it would react or do anything as well. Of course, nothing happened. We thanked the kid, and we're like, is there anything of interest around here? As we're bribing him with a couple silver, and one guy decided to even give him a gold piece. And my first thought upon giving this kid the gold piece, if you've ever seen the comedy Euro Trip, where the American kids flip a nickel to this guy in, I think, some ex-Soviet bloc country, and the guy is like so ecstatic. He is overwhelmed by the generosity of these Americans and how wealthy they are. Of course, they're just schmuck backpackers that threw the guy a nickel because they're broke. And this waiter guy is so overwhelmed by just how much wealth he now holds in his hand. He slaps his boss and says, "I'm going to open up my own hotel with this," and then runs out of the room. If you know anything about currency exchange, that scene is very funny. Well, not quite to that extreme. It does happen. And that's effectively what happened to this kid. Is I was like, man, I could disown my father and go to school within Sidebar Direct type thing. And so he's overjoyed. And he's like, hey, you want to go to the secret place where the kids play, the Cave of Echoes? And I'm like, or we are like, aha! Our clue. There's a cave around here. Cave of Echoes. Sounds mystical enough. Let's follow the kid. So we have to go all the way back around this garden, back to where we came off. I guess there was the obvious river bed that went off out of the what do you call it, the basin that we're in. But then there was another path that we kind of missed because it had been overgrown that ended up going into the hillside. So the kid takes us into the hill, into this little cave that we all have to like shimmy on in for. We get into this original opening space here, and there's, of course, two paths, as there always are. There's the left and the right. We can see on the ground that there's a lot of foot traffic that goes off to the right, but there's 0 foot traffic that's made any sort of imprint on this place that goes off to the left. And we ask the kid, like, hey, does anyone go to the left? He's like, no, that's the sacred, scary area that no one goes to. And we're like, okay, and we as a group are like, okay, we're going to have to go this way, but let's visit the other side first. So we end up going through this cave off to the right, down these corridors to get to this room where whatever you say just becomes like echoed intensively back at you. So when it's called the Cave of Echoes, me talking at this level would be echoed back at me like 10x, and then that constant feedback loop then would get very oppressive with the echoes. We then get into this big audience chamber that the kid shows us. Really high voltage ceiling to the point you can no longer actually see the ceiling from our torchlight, which we also know we have not gone far enough underground to justify the height of this, so the ceiling is actually higher than the mountain range, so we know some magic is involved in here. And we start chatting up with this wall that's got all these mystical carvings in it. And, of course, the echoes are just coming back at you really hard, really fast, really furious, really painful. And the kid is, like, trying to whisper, but, of course, it sounds like he's shouting his lungs off at us because of the echo effect of how this room works. That those that are in dire are on the wall, it says in ancient whatever language, ask. And, of course, then we go speak friend and enter and all those classic ways to see if this will take us into the garden, thinking, okay, this might be a primary way into the garden. The kid explains that the local legends are no, you just have to ask the wall for a favor and it will grant it if you are within certain dire straits. So, for instance, you show up and you go, hey, I'm hungry, can I have a hamburger? The wall just echoes it back at you, but doesn't give you anything. You show up with terminal cancer and you ask the wall, hey, can I get my cancer cured? Then the wall magically cures your cancer, that type of thing. It has to be sufficiently dire for the wall to actually do it. It just won't grant anyone's wish willy-nilly. So, with that little bit from the kid, and this is where that gamer moment came in, as I'm sitting there going, okay, this is probably how this wall, dire straits, wish granted. We know that the Romeo and Juliet escaped. We know earlier that one of them was injured, so there's always been the concern that one of them died. So, escaping from town, running their ass off, injured, looking for safety. If they came across this wall and asked for safety, there might have been a monkey's paw element to this that ended up transporting Romeo and Juliet into the secret garden. So we're like, okay, we got to ask this wall questions. But as we discover while asking it the questions, it's obviously not going to do it because none of us are in dire strait enough. I then immediately, as the kid is then explaining that you have to be in dire enough strait for the wall to do it, I then instantly come up to the idea, oh, so we just threatened the kid's life and the kid has to then ask the wall to deliver us Romeo and Juliet. I'm like, oh man, this is so gamer logic, and I'm like hating myself for it because I'm playing a neutral good character, and I'm like, why did this not pop in my mind? If I was a chaotic evil, this would have been a perfect time to play that stunt. It was just too comedic gold. I'm just sitting there like suppressing the desire to say this out loud because I'm like, I don't want to be the guy that actually brings up this idea to the group. Well, I don't have to. The lawful neutral, or no, not even lawful neutral, the plain neutral druid just randomly decides to pull his knife and stick it at the paladin's throat, threatening his life if Romeo and Juliet aren't there. Not quite as epic as threatening the kid, but in the same veins of what I was thinking of doing in this scenario. As I said, very pro gamer move. Would recommend it, especially if you're playing a good party. But if we were evil adventurers, oh boy. But the wall has a safety measure because, of course, we're inducing the threatening thing. Then it just like starts pounding the echoes at you so hard that you then have to like run away from the wall because it just hurts too much. And so we weren't able to go through that. So the kid's like, oh, I showed you all I can, but I'm late for dinner, so I got to hightail it out of there. So we say Auf Wiedersehen and Das Vidania to the kid. We then are like, okay, we need to go back to that original room and go to the road less traveled. Because obviously that's where the adventure module goes and where probably some very suspicious activity will occur. So we end up going through that. We have to squeeze through some lower caverns until we eventually get to this space that is... it opens back up into a very large cavern. There's the way we came in, that's here. It then opens up significantly roundish and then exit right across a small exit on the other side. Of course, there's a room off to the left and the right that come into this room as well. It's like the perfect location for an ambush, especially as we get the stalagmites and stalactites that are all over the place. It's like there's room to the left, room to the right, room across. It's probably across we gotta go, but because there's those, and we can see that a guy's dug a little bit of a skeleton remains in what looks like a hole that he must have dug into like the corner on the other side away from us in this rounded room. We're like, okay, this is obviously a trap location. We're going to get ambushed here, so how do we handle this so we can get out without being jumped by kobolds or something? So I cast Glamorous Noise, or the advantages of being a audible glamour. The advantages, of course, of being a illusionist. We're in the cave, we're worried about an ambush. I make the statement, I cast the sound of yummy adventurers crossing the room and making a big clank and as they transverse from one side to the other. So, of course, you hear then the audible sound. It sounds like adventurers, their pots, pans clinking, clacking as they mosey on across the way. And sound like they're talking as they move from one end of the room to the other. And we are not ambushed. We're like, okay. Creatures must not be here, as a snake or something would have probably smelt something. We do have the paladin, of course, that kind of can sense that not pure evil, but some sort of more evil-aligned creature is nearby. And we tiptoe into the room, and this possessed breeze ends up kicking up to the point that we get sort of like a tornado going off in this chamber that then takes all the stalagmites, stalactites, break them all up, and then start shifting them around in a wind. So now we got all the shrapnel flying through the air. So a couple of us end up having to just book it from one end of the room to the other, as we can hear that this wind is obviously magical because we can hear a voice screaming, "Get out!" at us. And so a bunch of us hightail it. One guy tries to hightail it in a closer spot. The scorpion dude into this little crevice that's in the room ends up getting impaled in the rear by a flying stalagmite for his troubles, and then has to hightail it out and with us out. But thankfully, none of us got, beyond him, one other person got nicked lightly. There's something flying through the air, but he was the only one that got nicked anything remotely memorable as part of this encounter. I would have liked to have had something we could have tried dispelling this, but we're pretty low level. Because with the caverns off to the left and right, I can't wait to read this module up here and see what was hiding in those rooms that we could have looted. But under the circumstances, like, okay, get out of Dodge. We will mess with this later. So we're out of Dodge. We go through another set of tunnels, and then we get into this room where there's this little, obviously quicksand chamber with handhelds across the side walls, and of course then another exit into this from this chamber on the other side as well, with intervening water and mud and quicksand looking stuff in between. Through here we can tell that, again, okay, we got ambushed in the last chamber by a spirit. Something's probably going to ambush us here. We're using the 10-foot pole to, like, poke in and see, like, how deep this water goes. It's like a pool where it's got that graduating down incline there that keeps on going deeper as it gets closer to the opposite end. So if we wanted to try wading across, we're going to be actually swimming across this by the end of it, according to the 10-foot pole. Of course, none of us want to go down there because we could also see some, like, mud-caked corpses in here that we ended up busting up with the 10-foot pole, and a skeleton comes flying out of it. Like, I don't want to be swimming in this crap. So we have the acrobat or the thief. He was one of the Scorpion Contrada guys. Okay, so my brother was the thief. The Scorpion sister was the assassin. The other guy, I think, was just a acrobat, maybe? Or no, fighter. Has these gauntlets that assist him with climbing, that essentially they phase into the rock face. You can grab it, then lock them so you can, like, monkey bar across the ceiling. So we hand him a rope as he's going up and around this room. Of course, the idea that he ties it off at the other end, and we're just going to military style shimmy across this rope over the water to the end. A couple other, two other guys who are more dexterous in trying to shimmy around the outer room. Most of us are just waiting for the rope to get lodged on the other end, so of course we can shimmy across and not have to worry about the water. Of course, the guy that's doing monkey bars over the ceiling, he's locked into the ceiling, but as he's about 2/3 of the way over, we then have these mudmen that come out of the water, and of course it's like quicksand, so it's like that very thick, viscous dirt and mud water combination, so you can't actually see into the water at all. So, and you had these mud-caked corpses, skeletons floating around the top, so it was like kind of not a surprise that these would be popping out at us in this adventure. And combat ensued. Realized as a illusionist, I had zero impact on the combat whatsoever. It was like, get out of their way, because I'm not willing to dive into the water to try to stab a mud monster with a dagger as an illusionist, and so it was just kind of getting out of the way. There wasn't really a good spell that I thought would have worked in the situation without feeling like I was trying to overkill because like casting invisibility would not have been any use in this scenario. The other guys end up dealing with the threats enough, though, that we killed the 3 mud monsters and we're able to continue our way through this environment. I have to say, I like how quick combat goes in these older adventure modules. I played another game at Simcom that was D&D that I'm not going to be telling the story about, because out of the 4 hours, almost 3 were just resolving the combat with the demon involved in this. And this adventure, we've already gone through a puzzle solving element, a non-monster trap. I say non-monster trap, a brief combat scenario, and are moving into another investigatory cavern where we are now in this open space, and where the crystal cave gets its name is this water that was feeding the room with the mudmen is like flowing from that opposite side entranceway. But as you get closer to this room and then start going through the crystal room and to this crystal waterfall, the water becomes very non-Newtonian and more viscous until the water suddenly becomes frozen and crystalline, as you have this crystal then waterfall going into this room. So from a game design, even though we are blowing through content at a breakneck speed, we're having multiple different mini elements to this adventure that we're rotating through. Combat, investigatory, traps, and now... and so really enjoying this older style gameplay that is more dynamic in the adventure, and really can't wait to see the full breadth and width that this adventure module can actually go in its full storytelling, not just the abbreviated version we got. So we're now in the crystal chamber, and as I said, there's a crystalline waterfall, water droplets that are all frozen in time. Of course, then the first question we have is, if the water's frozen in time, is this part of the garden? Are we going to have to worry about getting frozen too? So 10-foot pole, testing ahead. Also, I like this older style play where you have to describe what you're doing, not just rolling. Roll a d20. Game master, please explain what I did to figure out what the room is. No, we're using a 10-foot pole and actually figuring out how best to scientifically test. Can we safely enter this room and everything? Much more buy-in and engagement in our interaction with this module as well, compared to just resolving it as a test. Check for investigation or something, actually engaging in the steps of testing it out and safely trying to see, can we get in here? Of course, we get into the crystal room. There's the waterfall. It takes less than 10 seconds for anybody to go, okay, there's the waterfall, it's not moving. Standard fantasy trope, there's an entranceway behind the waterfall. If Skyrim taught us anything, that's always investigate by the waterfall. I can't take credit for that joke. Someone else made that one. And of course, lo and behold, we can see that there's a room behind this waterfall. And then now there's the puzzle element going. There's enough of a gap between where the crystal is coming into this room and this sort of frozen waterfall and this entranceway back here that there is a way to get back here. So how do we best do it? And we go through our items. I've got a potion of gaseous form. I kind of don't want to use it yet. Some other guy, though, has shrink self potion, so he downs the shrinking potion to be able to shimmy his way, because he's like an inch tall now, into this room that's behind the crystalline waterfall. As we can see, there's a room that with some sort of decayed, petrified table. In the middle of this table is broken many years ago, so it's been here for thousands upon thousands of years, probably. There's some glass goblets and glasses in here that must have fallen on the floor when the table fell over from decay and rot. And there's an alcove with this sort of glass mosaic surrounding it in the room. The tiny guy, of course, is investigating this and yelling it back to us as we're listening intently, trying to figure out, okay, what's here? There's obviously no other entrance. He climbs into this alcove, though, to check and test, okay, what happens here. Now, the person, actually, the sister of the Scorpion Contrada is the one who's small and actually in here. The reason being is the Serpent Contrada that I was part of, that had my character as the sister, and then the thief as the brother. Theirs was a fighter as the brother and an assassin as the sister. These were the only two brother-sister groups. Of course, the assassin sister then gets into this alcove, messing around with it for a bit, nothing happens, turns to leave, and suddenly, like, poof, vanishes into thin air. The Scorpion brother is then, of course, immediately distraught, goes, okay, WTF, where's the sister? Where did she get up to? Something magical crap here. Tries to claw his way into the room. Of course, he hadn't taken off the gauntlets, or hadn't announced he was taking off the gauntlets to the Game Master. So the Game Master is, okay, your Vorpal hand gauntlet thingies, in your quick desire to rush through to save your sister, end up, like, blowing huge chunks of this crystalline waterfall out. So it's like it had exploded outward and then immediately frozen in time, but because of that quick digging, he was able to create a large enough space that the rest of us could get in here without really undoing much, without having to, like, mess with crowbars and trying to break anything open. Instead, it's now a big open hole. We can kind of see that something's, like, moving incrementally, so slow, so we kind of do need to recover them fast, otherwise we're going to be trapped on the other end. But we all jump through, and in the process of jumping through, a couple of us snag some treasures that had been flowing through this waterfall. One guy gets a seashell that had been stuck in this waterfall. Another got a set of keys that we just grabbed, as we all then hop immediately into this alcove, hop in, turn around 3 times, try to leave, and then poof, we all disappear. So we all disappear. It's black. We can't see anything. We all must be dead. And then, of course, we hear that most annoying sound first thing in the morning. Hey, what you doing with all these weirdos around that entered the garden, Seamus? We're like, oh, crap. We're in for it now. The punishment of terrible accents. As a GM who does a lot of that, the guy we had did a much better Irish than me. I was waiting and kind of disappointed we never got any jokes about the lack of Lucky Charms. But this is the fairy circle that we woke up in, which I should have thought about it when I started recording. Of course, as I'm describing the fairy circle, I found some fan battle maps online to help describe this adventure. Now, again, a lot of this we didn't actually get to play in. Like, one of this is mentioned as a fire drake's lair. Never encountered that. Kind of glad we did it, honestly. But this is the actual garden itself within the confines of this scenario, which is a pretty good recreation of how it's drawn up in the module. As you can see here, we originally came on this side, investigated the kids over here, then went into the cave back over this side. That magically teleports us in here, because as we wake up, it's sunny outside. We can kind of see what looks like a weird skybox. These just described it like you get in the video game. So, of course, we must be inside the magical garden, of course. As we're like, crap, we wake up and now have to deal with leprechauns, who, of course, want to steal our Lucky Charms. Or, no, we want to steal their Lucky Charms. And we engage in annoying chicanery, as all these mighty leprechaun dudes just want to have a little too much fun at our expense, you know. They've been stuck in this garden for far too long, as they just want to engage in some chicanery. And no matter how much the assassin or the murderer fighter from the Scorpion can try to get at these leprechaun dudes. Of course, their chicanery just becomes more annoying and obnoxious by the second. Though at least they keep more to an Irish accent than I do, as I suddenly seem to have gone into this cross between Scottish and Russian somehow. But that be just the way it is, the way I play. So yeah, we dealing with the obnoxious leprechauns, trying to figure out how to get out of here, because of course they're using their fey magic to keep us trapped in here. We want out. Finally, we engage in enough chicanery that they're like, oh, we had our fun, but now the puzzle beyond you. To get into where the strange humans that you seek go, which is the ancient castle in the hedge maze, you need 4 keys to be able to get inside of there. You need the pin of an oak, the pin of dog rose, the pin of elm, and the pin of fungus. In there, I think. We need 4 pins. Now, this part, the adventure kind of falls apart slightly because we had like a 30 to 40 minute time limit at this point. So if you've played this adventure before, you know, I'm assuming, how much more content is in this garden that we did not actually get to roleplay through. We ended up getting a much more abbreviated as we ended up getting the shamrock was one, not the fungus. A shamrock from the leprechauns. Big surprise there. Immediately running into some centaurs that we won our social combat with, and so were able to not attack us, and ended up giving us the oak shamrock, or no, the oak pin that we needed to get this puzzle completed. And then because we were so friendly and they hadn't seen anybody in so long, they would decide to help us. So we had all the men in the group go to a grotto, which ended up them having to play some chicanery with an otter that I was up at that point almost 48 hours. And I think I had to leave the... so I was not fully paying attention to when the guys did their section. Or the male members of the party did their section with the otter trying to get 1 pin. Like a seaweed pin, maybe? I don't know. So they did that, and I also had to leave the room to use the restroom, I think. So I missed out a lot of the otter chicanery. I just know that there was some chicanery with that, as when I got back, the leprechaun had to pop back into existence to get that plotline moved along. The female members of the party end up trying to go engage some dryads to get a key. The dryads weren't home, and we happened to go in upstairs, loot through the dryad stuff, and get the other key. So I know that there, or at least I feel that there was going to be significantly more content around the dryad portion in particular. Just the way that he described the scenario and some of the things and clues. Like, it felt like there was more, but because of time crunch, we kind of just barged into the Dryad's house. She wasn't home, looted her stuff, find the thing we need, and just GTFO. So we have that at this point, the 3 of the 4 pins to enter this space. We end up encountering a 5th leprechaun that we hadn't seen yet. So we had the 3 in the leprechaun circle. This was the 4th leprechaun that we end up running into, who invites us to his bar. We get drunk on fairy and multidimensional beverages. The leprechaun feels kind of sorry for us because the GM is running out of time, and so explains what's here, that the 2 lovers are injured in the castle from their flight but we just need to get in there, give us the last key, explain how the hedge maze works. We skip the hedge maze entirely, get into the castle, find Romeo and Juliet, uh, go upstairs and answer riddle. It somehow then instantly transports us back to the Ducal Palace with Romeo and Juliet in tow. Adventure solved, war averted, dogs and cats not living together, if you remember the Ghostbusters reference. And we, of course, get handsomely paid by the Duke, as well as ducal favors that are now owed to us for having averted this big political mess in his realm. All in all, for what I played out of the adventure, a very nice adventure. I cannot wait to read it, get my hands on a copy of the full adventure and read actually the parts that we didn't get to engage in. I do want to do this for my players as well. I thought for what we got, it was a really good content that was available to us. There was also, just in the quick look, the amount of fan support. As we can see here, this is the Crystal Cave. This is the map for the Crystal Cave. The Dryad encounter. There's a palace that, had we had more time, would have engaged in. The hedge maze also should have been a bigger encounter than what ended up happening for us as well. Somewhere, I guess, there's a fire drake that we didn't get to mess with. And that's the Leprechaun's pub. I think he switched it to a leprechaun so it would be less Green Man, but... Or no, he was all green, so it might have been the same thing. But, of course, then the garden itself. The amount of fan support shows that art on Reddit that was available for this. I didn't do any of this artwork. I think all but one piece out of this I all found in Reddit's D&D map section. So there's obviously fans of the module that have done great support in getting modern content published for it, so you could stick it in a VTT if you needed to. So I thought it was great to play it that way, and really look forward to the opportunity of getting to play this for my players. For first time at SimCon, a really great introductory experience to the event. I didn't really engage in as much of the board games as really this con was focused at, but this RPG and the follow-up video that will be the second RPG that I played there, which was less structured and more of a sandbox one-shot than this, which was a structured adventure module. Both had their pluses and minuses. This one, of course, then, because just how much content we didn't get to experience because of time crunch, was the extreme minus for this scenario. But what we did get to play was really fun. The Game Master did a really good job doing this. I don't remember his name, otherwise I have it written down on a sheet of paper, but I also don't want to dox him on the internet without his permission. So if you happen to ever see this video, I want to say thank you for running this at SimCon. It was a great time. Really loved your adventure. I look forward to actually getting to experience the full adventure in the not too distant future. And we'll definitely post that video from the Game Master's perspective to see how the module runs from a Game Master support angle once I can get that experience taken care of. So if you have any comments about your experience playing this adventure, anything that I missed, and again, if I missed it, it's because we didn't play it because we had something of a time crunch for our scenario. We were really up against the wall that the Game Master had to really blow through those past 10 minutes that go from seeing the Green Man in the pub, giving us the thing, to whisking away the hedge maze, to finding Romeo and Juliet, answering a quick puzzle to get teleported back to town. So if there's more, don't blame me. It's a convention time crunch. You kind of get stuck in that sometimes. But post your favorite parts of the adventure module below. I, of course, am now completely done with this from a player's aspect, so I look forward to... It's been a while since I've been able to be a player and not having been spoiled on adventure beforehand. So it was nice getting to engage the brain cells and with this type of adventure. And we'll definitely have a fun time GMing it soon. So put your comments below, your thoughts of sections that we should have played, your comments about if you would like to see more of these RPG story time. Whether you like it or not, I at least have one more, probably two, as well as a upload of one I did on a previous YouTube channel attempt I did many years ago. But it will be your reception to this video that determines whether or not I continue this moving forward. I also admit I am not Puffin Forrest, so there's going to be no animations. It's going to be me talking here, hands waving all over the place as I'm explaining my fun at the adventure type thing. But if this catches on, people like it, may try to invest in getting someone on Fiverr that can do some basic animation for me. It all depends upon what you guys think of the video and if this actually ends up generating anything that I can justify going on to Fiverr for. So, thank you so much for sticking around this long and hearing me talk about this amazing adventure. I look forward to the follow-up video when it comes out about the wedding one-shot that we did as well, but this was the cave beyond the Crystal Cave, UK1 from TSR. Thank you all for watching. Put your comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Take care, guys.